Hello, and welcome to Hopeful Conversations, brought to you by Robbie's Hope Foundation. I am your host, Kari Eckert. Joining me today is Rebecca Heiss. Rebecca is the author of Instinct and an evolutionary biologist. Her book reveals the science behind our behaviors that affect our productivity, success, and ultimate happiness. We will visit today on how to redirect our instincts to work for us rather than against us. Rebecca, thank you for joining us on Hopeful Conversations.
Kari, thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Can you fill me in on what it means to be an evolutionary biologist?
How much time do you have? The basic idea of evolutionary biology is that we are all stuck with brains that aren't built for the world that we live in. They evolved during the time of our ancestors when we were living in small communities, 150 people or so, and we were dealing with the natural elements and hunger and trying to provide shelter and hunting our food and gathering our food. And those same brains exist in our heads today, and the environment has shifted dramatically, obviously, right? We can go down and get 5,000 calories for $5 in under 5 minutes. But our brains haven't quite caught up to that. And so really, evolutionary biology is understanding all of the maladaptations that we have for today's modern environment, and then saying, what can we do about that? How do we help ourselves and our brains really adapt to where we are currently?
Super interesting. I think something that not a lot of us spend very much time thinking about.
Yeah, I think that's true. Yep.
So the full title of your book is Instinct: Rewire Your Brain with Science-Backed Solutions to Increase Productivity and Achieve Success. Let's just a little cliff notes, if you will,
Easy.
The book, and then we'll dig into some particular topics.
Yeah, sure. So the idea with Instinct was to take 7 of what I think are the most common instincts that I see going awry in today's modern environment. So our stress response, for example, is the first chapter. I'm a stress physiologist, so my master's degree is in evolution human behavior. My PhD is actually in stress physiology. So looking at why we respond the way we do to, for example, a dozen emails coming in. I mean, we have a response, a bodily response, as if we're being chased by a tiger, which again makes sense because that's what our brains were used to, but it's not helpful in the modern world. So I look at 7 different 7 different instincts that we have. Again, fear of the other is another one of my favorite chapters. Like, why do we fear people who think different, look different, act different? Well, it's natural. And unfortunately, we equate something that is natural with being okay or normal, and it's just not. So just because it's natural doesn't mean it's good or healthy or productive. So kind of busting down those myths.
So you actually label stress as like the health epidemic of the 21st century.
Yeah, I do. I do.
What are some of the statistics of like the stress that we're under today?
Yeah, so we just coming off of a really interesting study that we did in 2024, looking at the various generations and their anxiety and stress responses. And I would love to say that it's getting better. And unfortunately, it's just getting worse. And every single generation seems to have more stress than the generation before it. And I think, again, because our bodies and brains, if you think about generations, how many generations it takes for an organism or an individual population to adapt, you're talking hundreds of thousands of years. And we're not that far out from living in caves. And so what we're seeing is, as technology has increased like this, our brains just can't keep pace. And so we're seeing more and more stressors that are not being handled well by our brain, because we're getting bombarded by 400 billion bits of information every single second. And if you think that's a made-up number, it's not. That's the estimated amount that our brain is responsible for filtering. So, of course, we're under stress. And my hope is that people can start to recognize that, okay, stress is inevitable, but what can we do about that stress? Well, we're not going to get rid of it, but we can begin to transform that stress to work for us rather than against us. And so that's the kind of stuff that I try and help people with in understanding this stress isn't going anywhere, but we can treat it differently, and we can use our brains to see it differently and transform that energy to help us.
How do we get our brain unstuck from survival mode?
Ugh, that's so hard. I wish there was like a button that I could just push, right? Unfortunately, it does require a lot of work. And I think I'm going to speak from a position of extreme privilege here, right? And say, for most of us in the weird cultures, the Western cultures, we're not hunting for our food, right? We have electricity. Most of us have cell phones. So this is speaking from a place of privilege. So let's start there. And saying, if you have a home, if you have food, if you have running water, you are better off than 99% of the world, and 99.99999% of the world of how we have lived. And so taking a breath in that moment and then saying, okay, the first question I ask myself when I feel stressed is this a tiger? And what that means is this literally going to kill me in the next 3 minutes? Now, it may be a horrible diagnosis, right? That's going to transform my entire life, and it's a huge stressor. But am I going to be dead in the next 3 minutes? And if I'm not going to be dead in the next 3 minutes, I now have an opportunity to use what my body is giving me as like this stress, this energy, in a manner that helps me, rather than sitting there and just worrying and people get into these ruts of just spinning their wheels and going, oh my gosh, there's nothing I can do. Well, what is the smallest action that you can take that moves you forward in that stress, right? Rather than trying to get rid of it, how do you move forward in it? And I think that's the biggest shift in getting out of survival mode, is saying, okay, I can't control the stress. I can let go of that. What can I do within it that moves me in a direction that's healthy, or a direction that begins to conquer it, or a direction that at least I feel like I have some autonomy within it? And that's the hope piece that really gives back our ability to feel human again.
Are you trying to like stop the fight, flight, freeze?
So this is a good question. So I often, when I'm doing keynotes, I'll ask people to expose themselves to discomfort challenges. And these are safe forms of discomfort. So like maybe, sing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star right now. Now that's socially terrifying, right? People are like, oh my gosh, they have this whole stress response. So you're going to have that fight, flight, freeze response. We're not actually trying to get rid of that. What we're trying to do is not tamp down on the physiology, but have our brains recognize, oh, this is my body that is helping me in this moment. This is my body giving me the resources to move through the stress, rather than going, I gotta run away. I can't do anything. I can't do anything. I have no control. So it's really about training our brains to think differently and use the energy differently.
Huh. It's super interesting. What about
Thanks.
the hormones in our body, like cortisol?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I love this question because everybody knows about cortisol, right? Cortisol is the main stress hormone. Yeah, you're going to have massive release of cortisol under stress. Good, bad, or otherwise. By the way, you also have a massive release of cortisol every morning when you wake up. It's why you get out of bed in the morning. That's literally don't get rid of cortisol. Cortisol is not a inherently bad hormone. Yeah. And yet we label it as such. It's like, well, that's bad. We got to get rid of it. No, it's a motivation hormone. It's actually most of the time it would have been an energy seeking hormone, like go get food, get out of bed and go get food, right? That's what cortisol is telling your body to do. It's getting your body going. So rather than trying to get rid of all of these hormones, one of the things that I remind people of is cortisol is a major stress hormone. You know what another major stress hormone is? Like one of the biggest ones?
What?
Oxytocin. Oxytocin is the togetherness hormone, the cuddle hormone, the love hormone, right? And we never talk about it. But oxytocin actually encourages us to seek help from people, to be together in stress, to work through things in community. And to me, that's a really powerful motivator that really helps us move through stressors together. And when we go through discomfort together, we actually become closer. And that's pretty special. So to me, this is not about getting rid of anything because we really don't have that control. And I don't know about you, but the last time I told my adrenal glands not to release adrenaline or cortisol, you know, stop trying to control what we don't have control over. And instead, how can we utilize this in a new way?
But that human nature or that human need to try to do things alone versus
Yeah.
need that oxytocin.
Yeah, it's so interesting to me that our stress response actually does encourage us to find community, right? I think it's a very Americanized concept, this individualized, I have to achieve by myself and prove myself. And our biology doesn't care about that. Our biology says, hey, this is how you're going to get through it. And you need that person. And incidentally, they need you too. One of my favorite studies to share is this was gosh, I want to say it was 2023. I might be misquoting that. I better look that up. But it was published in the Industrial Relations Journal, and it looked at several thousand individuals, 90 different workplace interventions, everything from like meditation to one-on-one coaching to massage, and none of them actually helped reduce stress, with the exception of one, and it was community service to others, which again makes complete sense when you look at our biological profile. When we serve other people, we actually get this helper's high. We get that oxytocin release because they're in stress, we're in stress, and we begin to serve one another and we feel better. Whether or not your stress is my stress, we're all sharing this load of some kind. And so when we help each other, we're activating those oxytocin hormones. And to me, that's so beautiful because you're not getting rid of stress, but you can feel good in it with one another.
But sadly, so many of us are, like research is showing, people don't have community. There is
Yeah,
this
so true.
loneliness epidemic,
I agree. I agree.
which is hard.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it does beg the question, like, what stops us? What stops us from reaching now? And I think that would be one of the things that I would challenge all of us, all of the listeners to ask themselves, like, what stops me from calling a friend, from getting together to sit down and just talk or move our bodies? I'll tell really briefly a very quick story if you're open to it.
Absolutely.
We had a really, really scary diagnosis. One of my best friends in the world last year was diagnosed out of the blue with stage 4 cancer. And I mean, we were given weeks.
Oh,
And we have a really tight friend group, and we just immediately all came together and was like, okay, this person's reading primary literature on the cancer. This person is calling John Hopkins. This person is providing meals. This person is doing, and the long short of the story is I ended up taking her wife to play basketball, to move our bodies together. And it formed this, we ended up having more and more people come play, more and more people come play. And you're thinking, why are you playing basketball in the middle of this tragedy? But the reality was we ended up forming a nonprofit for women basketball players of a certain age, right? As we're aging, because everybody had some stress in their life, whether it was their wife being diagnosed with cancer or taking care of an elder parent or going through a divorce. And we got each other through that time. And I can't end this story without giving the incredible results with this wolf pack of women that came together. We got this appointment at Johns Hopkins with the predominant biologist at the time in this particular cancer. She got a treatment that nobody else had ever had before, and we are celebrating coming up this next month 1 year cancer free.
awesome.
So again, and I'm not guaranteeing any outcomes for anybody here. This is just when people come together in stress, incredible things happen. And independent of Carrie's outcome, which is incredible. Like, I think we're all so excited and thrilled by that. That coming together did so much more than you know than a cancer diagnosis or getting through that stage.
Thank you for sharing that. It's a beautiful story
Yeah,
of coming together. Giving
yeah.
others what that can do. It's extremely powerful.
It is.
Back to stress. You're that.
Yeah, sorry.
As I like kind of exhale a little bit, like, yeah, there's that stress always. Are we like in 2025 always racing? What, like, always that How do we change that?
That's a really good question, and one that I have to remind myself of every day.
That,
Because right, I often am told, "Well, you're a stress physiologist. You must not be stressed all the time." I'm like, I'm always stressed. I went into this because I'm stressed because I'm constantly running, and I'm like, oh, I have to do this, I have to achieve this, and I think for me, one of the most helpful things is I always ask myself, to what end? To what end? Why am I doing this? What purpose does this drive? What meaning does this derive for me? Um, I think one of the things that is really important for people to recognize, and I will answer your question eventually, I promise, but like there's a point that I want to drive home here, which is that stress and meaning are actually highly correlated. So full stop there. If you want to live a meaningful, purposeful life, it is probably going to be full of stress. And I'm not saying that you should run full tilt into the stress for meaning and purpose. What I am saying is maybe we shouldn't be so scared of it. And we should definitely question our motivation. Why are we doing the things we're doing? Like, why do we feel like we can't turn off? Is that because we are driven by a purpose? Great. Then it's probably not. It's probably a passion, right? It's probably not this stress driving you like you have to. It's a choice that you get to. Um, the hope is that if you feel like you're drained and you can't turn off because you don't feel like you have the option, that's a very different feeling, right? And that's where I want everybody to go, why not? And I think it's because, and I hate to do this, but like these little devices,
you're holding your phone.
we've gotten so tuned in to everybody else's lives that I think many of us feel behind all the time. If we're not on our phone, if we're not, catching up and binge watching the new series that's come out, if we're not answering the text messages at 3 a.m. when they come in, there's no directive that says you must. And so reminding people of that, like, why? No is a perfectly fine sentence and a complete one. No.
I heard a new
Because
thing for no. Next opportunity.
love that. Love that.
So I'm hearing like stress isn't always bad. Like you change that lens. Like it's what motivates us and what allows us to have that success.
100%. And I'll ask you this. This is part of my research because I actually struggled with this because I was like, no, get rid of stress. It's bad, right? Like all of the health crises we see, it's like, well, yes, and. So this is the question that was really clarifying for me. I'll ask you and I'll ask your audience, I want you to think about a project or an accomplishment that you're most proud of. Right? Now go back in time to when you were in the middle of that project. What was your stress level? Yeah.
Pretty
high. And
high.
and most people are like, on a scale of 1 to 100, it was 4,000, baby, So stress doesn't have to be labeled as good or bad. It can just be energy that we get to use in the ways that we want to use it.
Motivating factor. You talk about choice. We talked about that before we were on. Like, what beautiful thing that we have, but sometimes the weight of it.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so humans are variety seekers. So sorry, that was me. Let me say that again. Humans are variety seekers. We think we want more variety all the time.
And we have a lot of it right now.
And we have so much. Like, go to the grocery store. How many options do you have for jam, right? And actually, the more choices we have, the correlation to happiness actually decreases. Like, we're less happy with more choice, but we think we want all the choice, right? Yeah. Which is like, and still when you tell me, I know this logically, right? Cognitively, I'm like, okay, fewer choices, I'll be happier with the choice that I make. And yet I'm like, but I want it all. And I think the more exposure we have to all these different options, all these different lives. My grandmother said something that I think has been one of the most grounding principles of my entire life. She said, don't let your options be your burdens. And that is such powerful advice, right? Make a decision, go all in that decision. And the reality is 99.9% of decisions that you make are reversible. So like, okay, that didn't work out. Great. Pick a new trajectory. Great. Pick a new trajectory. Life is full of choices and options, but when we get overwhelmed by them, we actually end up feeling less happy, less joyful. The joy of missing out is really powerful, you know?
Certainly,
Yeah.
certainly. I found some of the research in your book about the distractions really, really interesting. I actually shared some of the numbers with my husband, and he was like, "No way!" Like, talk about like, you just pulled up your phone and showed it to us. How distracting our phone is, and how long it takes our brain to refocus.
Yeah. So, Kari, you're probably going to be more familiar with these stats because it's been a year or two since I've done that research. I have a new book coming out, so that's
Yeah, that's your
but
focus.
but
We can talk
yeah,
about
that's my
that.
focus. But you're gonna have to correct me if I get this wrong. But when the phone goes off and I check my phone, even for like 2 seconds to get, oh, that was just a notification. It takes what, 20 minutes to get
Yes.
back to focused work.
Yes.
That's You think about how many times your phone goes off during the day, and I know I'm guilty of this, right? If I don't turn my phone off, I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna look at it, and then I do, and then I go back, and you've lost 20 minutes to refocus, reread. I think about this all the time. One of the principles I talk about in my book is the Ohio principle, right? Only handle it once. And I know I'm guilty. I'll pick up my phone, I'll read an email, and I'm like, well, I don't have time to answer that. And then, I go back to my computer an hour later and I'm like, I'm rereading all of these emails that I've already read, and I've doubled my workload. So part of the reason I think we feel like we're caught in this treadmill that is, jacked up to 10 miles an hour and we're running as hard as we can and we don't have a break is because we are always connected and we don't take those breaks that allows our brain to go, and then get back to it full force. We're kind of half on all the time, which makes us feel like garbage, frankly.
Only handle it once. I like that.
Yeah, only handle it once.
What other practices or tools are some of your favorites to share that are
Yeah, I block my calendar. This is one of my most important productivity hacks is I block my calendar. So I told you this morning I was out bicycle riding. This is my first appointment of the day. I blocked my entire Friday mornings for riding bikes with friends. I get outdoors, no meetings, nothing. That's my time. And what I find is I'm more productive on the days that I do that because I've had my break. I feel calm. My brain, I've exercised, I've moved my body, and my brain is now targeted and ready. If I wake up and I pour caffeine, which, I do, I pour caffeine down my gullet and I just start working, I can easily get into my email inbox and spend 24 hours doing nothing but answering emails because once I send an email, a response comes back and then I respond to that. And this is the cycle that I think a lot of people get into. So I will block time for emails in the morning, an hour, and then I close that tab and I won't check that until 1 o'clock. And at 1 o'clock, I'll check. I'll answer anything that's urgent, but everything else I'll save. And at the end of the day, I close out all of my emails for the day. And then I don't look again. So I have these huge chunks of time
chunks?
throughout the day that I can do deep work. Otherwise, I will be in the inbox replying all day to messages back and forth. In fact, I'm trying a little experiment where I'm not using email.
How's that going?
Yeah, it's tough. It's a real challenge for me, but I'm trying a few other things. I'm trying like voice messages. I know email was supposed to be this great invention where we get away from having to make phone calls. I hate the phone, but I can do this and communicate with you really clearly in about 30 seconds. That's going to take me 5 minutes to write an email. And
Oh,
so I'm going,
pick up.
why? Yeah, pick up the phone. I'll leave a voice message. That's
How does
fine.
text messaging come in there? I really struggle with text messaging because I'll read it, don't
Don't
respond,
respond.
but it's like trickling in my
Yeah.
brain, and then I get back to it. I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't respond.
So same thing. I have set times that I respond to my text messages, and I will turn my phone off and all notifications off. That is, to me, that is the only way that my brain has space to get into the deep work. Otherwise, when people think they can multitask, we've all heard nobody can multitask, but for whatever reason, we believe that we are the exception to that rule. And so I mean, I thought that too. I'm like, yeah, I know other people can't multitask, but like,
That
let
doesn't
me show you what I can do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So for all of you thinking that is you, let me give you the thing that changed my mind. I want you to spell your name and count to 10. So mine would be REBECCA 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10, right? Now I want you to spell your name and count to 10 at the same time. So R1, E2, B3, where am I? E. Like it is so, and that's what we're doing when we're multitasking. Is our
Yes.
brain has to switch tasks. It's going back and forth. It's making more mistakes. It's slowing us down. And so that to me was a wake up call to go, oh, I think I can do this. I can't even spell my own name and count to 10 with the same efficiency as doing it and then doing the next thing.
It's a great example. I've talked about multitasking because I've read a lot about it and how our
Mm,
brains just can't do it. And when I do my public speaking, especially with high schoolers, they look at me when I say, you can't multitask. They
yeah.
look at me like I have like horns growing out of my head.
Yeah.
Like, I can listen to music. I can be on
No,
Instagram
you
and
can't.
and doing my homework. Like
Yeah.
it's just such a hard thing for us to understand.
Yeah. And the reality is, yes, you can listen to music and be on Instagram and do your homework. And it's going to take you 5 times as much time. And you're going to make more mistakes.
Yeah,
And
more errors, less creative, and our productivity plummets is what I have from your book.
there it is. Yeah. Good. Good. Yep.
Okay, and some more statistics. I love statistics. I don't know if it's my age, but I think they help
I
tell a
do too.
story.
I do too.
Um,
Yeah.
Decision making. We make 35,000 decisions a day,
Yeah.
227 decisions alone on food. That's from a study from Cornell. Like,
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
it's super interesting. Can you, like, how does
Yeah.
that make us not make the best decisions?
Yeah, I mean, when we get bogged down, right? And our brains hit a point where it's kind of, I always think about the cartoons where, the brain goes tilt, right? That happens to us. That is a cognitive load that can't be surpassed. And so when we start the day and we're like, what am I going to wear today? What kind of milk am I going to have in my coffee? Oat milk, skim milk, creamer? Should I do soy milk? Like, we don't even recognize which earrings am I going to put in? Am I going to wear my hair up or down? There's so many unconscious decisions that take a toll on our brains that the more you can automate those processes. So I know this is really lame, but I have my uniform. I know what I'm going to wear every day, and it's some form of t-shirt with my slacks, my sandals if I'm at home, my Converse if I'm going to work. Like, I have my uniform. I spend zero time thinking about the clothes that I'm going to wear. I know what I'm having for breakfast every day because it is the same every single day. I've got my coffee, I've got my creamer, I know exactly what I'm doing. Now, I'm not saying you should have like no variety in your life, but where there are decisions that you don't like, I'm not a fashion person. If fashion is really important to you, don't compromise those decisions on fashion. To me, it's like the thing that I really dislike. I don't want to have to think about fashion. So if I can automate it, great. Breakfast, I feel the same. I'm like, I'm not really hungry in the morning. Now I do love food. So that's where I save some of my cognitive load to decide and to really think about my dinners. Like, what do I want? And I have space for that because I've actually allowed other things to be automated throughout the day. Same thing with calendar blocking, right? Like, because I have this space automatically built in, it's not, what am I doing at this hour or this hour? I know. So I'm not making these difficult decisions. Can I put a meeting in there? No, it's blocked, right? The more you can do that, the more space it gives your brain to have creativity for the things that you really care about.
I like that a lot. Another thing I found in your book that I like is this is your captain speaking.
All right, I want you to explain that one because that's one of my favorites too.
Oh, so evidently, like a person uses this as a tool, like on their a sticky note on their mirror. And
Yeah.
just like
Yep.
think of how a captain on an airline or even a boat or how they speak. They're
Yeah.
calm, they're
Hmm.
clear,
Hmm.
they're not rushed.
That's it. This is like so. This is my friend Artie Isaac, an incredible mentor of mine. Said he put a post-it note that says, "This is your captain speaking on his computer." And anytime he feels that stress, that like anxiety, you imagine being on a flight, which a lot of people don't like flying to begin with, but
Right.
you imagine like you're on a flight and your captain comes on and he's like, ah, and she's like, oh my gosh, we just hit something and everything's fine. Everything's fine. Don't worry. Everything's fine. We're going to have to land in 5 minutes and, don't worry. Everything's fine. Like it's absolute chaos, right? Even if everything is fine at that point, I'm not convinced. And so actually convincing your brain that you're okay sometimes is as simple as speaking slowly, speaking with an authority, giving yourself the confidence. So this is actually one of my favorite pieces of research that I don't believe is in the book, but it's in the next one. We think that we're happy or we smile when we're happy, right? Like that, I'm happy, so I smile. But in fact, we actually become happier because we smile,
Mhm.
right? And so our brain is looking for somatic feedback. It's looking to the body to say, what's going on? Am I happy? Am I scared? Am I excited? Am I anxious? And so when we're talking to ourselves like a captain would, and that captain's voice is something like mine going, ladies and gentlemen, we are experiencing a little bit of turbulence right now. There's nothing to be concerned about. If you would just return to your seats, we'll get to you as soon as, like, okay, we're going through something. That's fine, but we're okay. And so like that's the equivalent of me going, okay, yep, throwing my shoulders back, putting a smile on my face and saying, this is going to be tough. Let's go. Hoorah, baby. Like let's lean into this and find a way through it.
I like that. Thank you for sharing that. I think that, listeners can take away, like, be that captain for yourself.
Be that captain. Yeah.
Calm.
And instantly for others because humans are contagious, right? Like fear is really contagious. Joy is really contagious. People catch feelings. So, what strings are you plucking for other people?
Ooh, ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. You have a master class about fear. Tell us
Do.
about your other things. You mentioned your book. Your next book is on
Yeah.
purpose. Like, there's a lot, and we can find
Whew.
you on your website, RebeccaHeiss.com, or on
Yeah, yeah.
Instagram.
Yeah, so my website, RebeccaHeiss.com, Instagram, I'm Dr. Rebecca Heiss. I have a lot of really exciting things happening. So my new book is called Springboard. You can see it behind me here. Very excited. So this is the early copy. It's paperback, but Springboard: Transforming Stress to Work for You. It is an extension of chapter one. I took the whole chapter of my first book and turned it into a totally new book. So Springboard is all about all of the stressors that compound us and push us down and push us down. And what the point of this book is to say, look, Olympic athletes don't break world records under like conditions of practice. They break them at this point. And when that spring is released, if we can point it at a particular trajectory, it can serve us. That's when Olympic athletes break world records, is when the pressure and the stress is the highest. And we all have that ability with the right stress mindset. So that's my new book. It's coming out in September 2nd. Really, really excited for it. You can pre-order it now. I am doing a lot of speaking engagements, doing this master class, which is all about fear and stress and anxiety and finding your positive sort of manifestation, which is a word I hate, but manifestation for skeptics, in how we move through all of the fear that we don't get to control. Um, yeah, that's what I'm doing. Life is full and wonderful and stressful, and I love that. Yeah, such a gift.
Fear. Like, I guess from personal experience, I can see sometimes because I've suffered loss at a
Mm,
catastrophic, like, most parents' worst fear, losing a child.
yeah,
I lost a
yeah,
child. And I can see sometimes, you said, like, how our feelings and what we bring to other people. Like, how do I change that for other people? I try to like, don't see fear or experience fear because of my loss.
Oh, I love that. I think, all right. First of all, thank you. Because that's a brilliant question. I think one of the things that I teach is these stressors. I call them tigers, right? The tiger, the fear of the loss of a child, like that is every parent's worst nightmare. It is horrible. It is terrifying. And what most people will do is go, nope, don't want to think about it, don't want to talk about it. I'm going to hide over here. I'm going to put it away. I'm going to compartmentalize. And what you're doing is such a gift because you're saying, you're inviting what I call inviting the tiger in for tea. You're like, come on, sit down. Let's talk about this. And when we invite our stressors in and we demonstrate to others, look, this is not something I'd wish upon my worst enemy. And I'm going to sit with it and I'm going to have tea with it. And I'm going to share with others how they can sit and have tea with it. That's the kind of emotional contagion that I'm talking about here, because we can fear less through your example, right? It's scary. It should be scary. Fear is a gift, right? It's there for a reason. But when we fear logically, when we fear the things we're supposed to fear, and we can learn and grow from one another, that community, that stress that I talked about, like that oxytocin, actually you're giving that gift to others to say, yes, and through me, you can fear a little bit less. That's so powerful. So thank you for that gift.
Thank you. I like that. I think I can take that and use that. Like, let's sit and have tea with this. And
yeah, have tea with the tigers.
Oh, yep. Goodness. This has been a super interesting conversation. I love this topic. I love like coming at life with like power and opportunity and not like challenges is not a negative word. Fear isn't a negative word. Like together, community, it's exciting stuff.
All right. Thank you. I think, I think these words they are the power that we give them, right? And so the less we label good, bad, fear is bad, stress is bad, the more we can invite them in and really explore and fear a little bit less in that. I think that's great power.
You don't get to go yet. I have one last question.
Oh, good. I love it. Bring it on.
What does the world need to hear right now?
I think the world needs to hear right now that your pain is valid, it's real, it's seen, and you're not alone in it. And because you're not alone, there's hope.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. That's such a good question. Gosh, I could have spent a lot more time thinking about that. Thank you for that opportunity.
Your pain is valid. Dr. Rebecca Heiss, thank you so much for being a guest today on Hopeful Conversations. Very much appreciate your time. To our listeners, you can find Rebecca in a lot of different platforms. Please do that. She's a cool one.
Thanks.
And until our next episode, remember hope. Hold on, pain ends. Thank you, Rebecca.
Thanks, Kari.